Who are you, and what is it that you do?
I'm Chris, and I am a worm farmer.
A worm farmer. Now that's very interesting. I don't think I've met a lot of worm farmers. Well, what exactly is a worm farmer?
A worm farmer is someone who grows and breeds worms. Now, I started doing this just for my own personal use because worms are a very important part of the soil cycle if you're going to have healthy soil to grow food. Okay? But I quickly learned that worms reproduce very quickly.
What is this that you're doing right there?
All right, so we have just passed the vernal equinox, so it is now officially spring. So the worms are going to get their first feeding. They've been in hibernation throughout winter, which means that they eat very little. They reproduce very little. They just kind of like hang around. So now they're going to start getting active, making soil, making worm tea. So what this is
Does that have worms? Is that
no? This is a compost bin for the kitchen, and so coffee, banana peels, eggshells are the primary things that go in here. Those give the three components that soil needs for healthy food. And what I'm doing is putting them into my Ninja blender, blending them up into a fine puree, which I then feed to the worms. Because the worms, they will eventually process all of this, but it takes them longer. And for the spring, for the first feeding, I want them to have as fast access to food as possible.
okay? Well, let me ask you, what is it that you do as a worm farmer that is different than other people that are worm farmers?
Well,
Or is there a difference?
there is a difference. I'm an organic urban worm farmer, meaning that I live in an apartment in an urban city. I keep all of my stuff organic, and whereas there are ways to take care of worms that are not necessarily organic, I'm very picky in particular to make sure that they stay organic.
That's very interesting. What if someone wanted to farm worms like you do? I mean, isn't there a scientific name for what you do?
I'm sure there is. I have no idea what it is.
Well, what if someone wanted to farm worms as you do? What would you tell them?
I would tell them to make sure that they have an end goal, that they know what they're doing. Do your research. There's plenty of knowledge out there. I didn't even start intending to harvest worms, right? I just wanted to have an organic garden. But you can go to Home Depot or other stores and buy all the topsoil you want. Doesn't mean it's going to be organic. And before the season's up, it's going to stop producing. And your plants they may mature, but they may not produce fruit. Or you can take the long route, like I do, and be committed to having an organic urban garden. Okay? So since I'm in an apartment, my garden is vertical. A lot of stuff is hung from the roof, and that conserves space, and it's 100% organic. I use organic fertilizers, if I use fertilizers, and everything that goes into my garden is organic.
Wow, that's awesome. Maybe we can take a look at that later. Let me ask you, where do you see yourself in 5 years with this worm farming? Do you have any goals for 5 years?
Well, obviously, it starts with worms, because worms will take dirt and turn it into soil. The difference is that dirt cannot grow food. Soil can. To do that, you need worms. All right?
So there's a difference between dirt and soil.
Absolutely. So if you have happy worms, you're going to have happy soil, and you're going to have happy food. That makes you happy.
And where is this going in the next 5 years?
In 5 years, we're looking at I would like to be able to completely feed my family and others, if possibly, with an organic garden. I've been farming worms for about a year now, year and a half maybe, and I'm now at the point where I have too many worms, really. I need to start selling them, start giving them away. Something I have too many worms. So I'm already there, and within a couple of years, I want to be at the point where I have too much produce, so I have to start selling it at the market.
I see. So what you're doing and where you're going in the next 5 years, let me ask you this. How do you think this fits with what's going on in the world? I mean, on planet Earth right now, especially on a social level.
I think it fits perfectly because people are realizing that there are companies out there such as Monsanto and other companies that are very good at providing food to the world, but it's not organic and it's not necessarily healthy. Okay, most of our illnesses are caused from inflation of the cells. You know, where the cells actually swell and burst. Okay, a lot of that is caused from chemicals that are made in the manufacturing of processed foods. So you go back to the earth, back to the way that we were meant to live. You eat food that is organic. You grow food using organic means, organic soil. Okay, you take your leftovers, process them into compost, put them back into the soil, let the worms have them to produce healthy soil. Again, it's a big cycle. People are growing further and further away from a sense of being part of a nation, and they're feeling like they're part of the world. Okay, so we're looking at within 5 years, the organic movement is going to boom. Russia is already proposing that they are going to be the world's largest producer of organic food. For me personally, I really don't want my organic food to come from Russia. I don't. I'd rather grow it myself. That way I know what's in it and I'm very happy to eat it. I think a lot of people will eventually come around to the same way of thinking. Everything is a circle. Everything is a cycle. Many years ago, hundreds of years ago, there was no such thing as organic food. It was just food because everything was organic. Nothing was manufactured when it comes to food. You ate where you lived, and you returned your waste product to the ground. And I think things are going back that way.
Well, let me ask you, Chris, do you have a motto or a saying or a coined phrase or anything that you feel like that represents who you are and what you do?
Keep it organic.
Keep it organic.
Keep it organic.
That's awesome. So, this is the worm.
Yes, this is the compost from the kitchen waste, and it's going into my Ninja blender, which is going to help it break down. Then the worms can access it when I turn it into like a puree.
Awesome.
All right, so we're out on the porch. Like I said, I live in an apartment in the city, so you can hear the school bus dropping off the kids. And so I don't have a whole lot of space to work with. But in this space, I can grow 72 plants, all food producing. And for example, right up here I have, this is garlic that lasted through winter, right? And they're hanging. Eventually I'll have hanging plants all the way around here. Here in Georgia I'm growing pineapple. Not usually done in Georgia, but I'm actually growing pineapple. We have blueberry. We have different kinds of mint. There's lemon and orange trees, tamarind trees, usually grown in the jungle. I'm actually growing them. I have 4 tamarind trees. There's kale. There's 2 kinds of peppers, 2 kinds of tomatoes, cabbage, basil, 2 different kinds of basil. And this is just getting started. This is what survived the winter and what I've been able to produce with some seeds. So right here we have the worms. Okay, it's nasty. They've been hibernating for the winter, and they have a layer of food on top. So what I'm going to do, the worms are basically lazy, so you have to wake them up. Now the temperatures for the spring will start to wake them up. Once the soil hits about 68 degrees, they'll become very active. But I'm taking a bucket pot, and I'm actually throwing the soil into the pot as much as possible. See some of the worms in here, some of the worms moving around. These are Texas red composting worms, and they're nice and happy, but they're very slow right now. They're still waking up. Basically, as soon as I turned this upside down, they started moving around, so they're starting to wake up. I'll leave you with this. No matter where you are, no matter how little you are or how little space that you may have, do it. Go organic. It's not as expensive. It's not as hard as you think. Start reading. There's free information on the internet, and just do it. Commit to it. I have an almost zero waste home. I have an almost completely organic home, and I have an organic garden that produces food every year. You can do it. And by the way, this information is shared free of charge. It is for educational purposes. Take this information, add to your own personal library of knowledge, and let's share the organic lifestyle.